No Henry Cavill Superman, no money, wallets, clothes.
Your DCU is dead on arrival like we've been telling you. 250 million fake views, crap.
The Snyder fan movement collapsed the moment Superman 2025 opened successfully, disproving every prediction they had spent years making. Ever since James Gunn was announced as the new creative lead for DC, Snyder fans positioned themselves as an opposition group, convinced that his version of Superman would fail both critically and financially. They called for boycotts, spammed hashtags like #wallets-closed.
Wallets closed.
And of course, the classic #restore the Snyderverse. And they confidently pushed the narrative that mainstream audiences would reject any Superman film that didn't involve Zack Snyder or Henry Cavill. That belief was disproven on July 11th, when Superman 2025 debuted with the largest opening weekend in Superman's entire history. Snyder fans had spent months claiming the film would struggle to crack basic financial targets, but those claims were false. The audience showed up, and what makes this result especially damaging to the Snyder fandom's credibility is that it happened even in markets where they deliberately tried to sabotage the film. India became a specific focus for Snyder fans after James Gunn's old tweets resurfaced, as well as there being out-of-context interview clips where coordinated efforts online attempted to push narratives around banning the film in India. None of that worked. In fact, Superman 2025 opened as the #1 movie in India, posting the biggest opening weekend for any DC film in the country. Snyder fans had made India a key part of their protest strategy, and that strategy failed in the most visible way possible. It's one thing to predict failure and be wrong privately, but it's another to run an organized boycott, only for that boycott to then have no measurable impact whatsoever.
You lose.
This is about showing exactly what the end of the Snyder Cult looks like in real time. So let's start at the beginning of the week. The Snyder fandom's first reaction to Superman's opening numbers was public denial, shown in real time through social media posts. When Variety confirmed the film had earned $22.5 million in previews, Snyder fans did not attempt to analyze or engage with the data. Instead, their response was to claim that the numbers had been falsified. One of the clearest examples came from Twitter user Kal-El7612, who posted, "This is called emotional manipulation from Variety. No way in hell that Dodo Superman can make $22.5 million after the incoming bad and negative reviews all over. Laughing emoji, laughing emoji, laughing emoji, #Superman flop." This tweet does not express confusion or skepticism. Instead, it just shows complete refusal to accept publicly available information. The specific phrase emotional manipulation implies that this dude saw neutral box office reporting as a direct attack on his worldview. This guy's entire identity as a member of a fandom depended on Superman 2025 failing, so when the data conflicted with that expectation, they defaulted to conspiracy theories rather than revising their own beliefs. That initial denial quickly escalated into outright financial predictions that ignored real-time box office updates, even as global reports continued to show strong numbers. Snyder fans began posting absolute statements about the film's supposed failure.
It doesn't make sense, but what does make sense is that James Gunn pocketed that money for him and his buddies and his wife and those shills on YouTube. That's where that money went. That makes more logical sense.
Once denial over Superman's box office numbers collapsed, you also had Snyder fans that shifted into accusing critics and audiences of being paid shills. I myself was called a paid shill because I liked the new Superman movie. And to them it was like, yeah, WB's paying you. It's like, no, I liked the movie. I thought it was fun. If audiences enjoyed James Gunn's Superman, it had to be because Warner Brothers was secretly paying people to say good things about it. And not that people just liked the movie. Snyderbros did not present evidence for this belief beyond a press invite that circulated on Twitter, which showed basic language encouraging social media posts. Twitter user Hayden_Barton_39 posted, "We're not paid to leave good reviews. Yeah, no shit, this is what we mean. #Superman movie." The attached image read, "Social posts are not required but greatly appreciated as they help us prioritize you for future opportunities." This is just standard phrasing used across the film industry for press screenings and influencer events. It really doesn't promise any payment or push them to say good things. It doesn't instruct reviewers on what opinions to express. But of course, Snyder fans, being media illiterate, interpreted it as being direct evidence of fraud because they needed a reason to dismiss the overwhelmingly positive reception that Superman was receiving. Rather than just accept that the film had connected with audiences and critics on its own merit, they defaulted to accusing the entire system of corruption. As the opening weekend continued, Snyder fans escalated from shill accusations to outright moving the goalposts. By Sunday afternoon, they stopped arguing that Superman was a flop and started nitpicking specific figures. One example came from Twitter user Prime_76, who posted, "Y'all still love lying on your own IPs. Man of Steel globally made $225 million in 24 markets first weekend. Superman globally made $217 in 78 markets." This argument deliberately ignores key variables like the number of markets, ticket price inflation, the fact that this is a post-COVID environment, and the simple fact that opening weekend totals do not define long-term success. The point was not to make an honest comparison, but just to keep the illusion alive that Man of Steel had somehow outperformed Superman 2025, even as every available data point showed otherwise. The fandom's behavior then started shifting from denial into outright performative cult behavior. At that point, all these posts were about creating public displays of loyalty to Zack Snyder's vision of Superman, no matter how disconnected those displays were from reality. One clear example came from this Twitter user who posted, "Little man watching the real Superman with daddy." That post included a photo of a young child sitting in front of a TV watching Man of Steel. Another user and friend of the channel, Super Daikaiju Tony, responded with, "Isn't this like indoctrination?" This is a very weird and darker pattern that I've seen across the Snyder fandom, where parents and older fans would stage photos or videos of their children watching Snyder's Superman films as a symbolic protest against James Gunn's version. They are outright using their own children as props for internet clout. They are trying to reinforce loyalty to a specific film franchise as if it were a political movement. And at this stage, the Snyder fandom no longer resembled a group of film fans, but instead this weird ideological circle where public displays mattered more than actual outcomes. Literally putting your own children out on the internet as ammunition for culture war nonsense. That same mindset carried over into larger scale stunts, such as the "While It's Closed" campaign pushed by accounts like the Lethal Geeks. Leading up to Superman's release, Lethal Geeks repeatedly posted about refusing to support the film financially, positioning themselves as the vanguard of the Snyderverse protest. Their unhinged tweets read things like, "Real fans, real people, not bots, hashtag Henry Cavill Superman, hashtag While It Closed, hashtag Restore the Snyderverse." The Lethal Geeks also organized a physical in-person protest, renting out a truck with an LED billboard attached to it displaying Snyderverse-related slogans. I'm not joking.
So, right here we're with Marcus Neil Sevens, member of the community.
That's right. Snyderverse, baby.
Yeah, baby. So what you think about this beautiful little truck that we pulled for the people?
Support is love for the Snyderverse fans, for the Snyderverse in general, and for Zach. And listen, we're out here fighting. We're out here trying to get it back.
Exactly. Christopher McQuarrie. We could have had Christopher McQuarrie.
Like, think about this for a second. This dude's literally paying thousands of dollars to try and sway public opinion through visible street-level marketing, and none of it worked. He just got laughed at on the internet. That truck billboard didn't impact sales, and if anything, it only reinforced how disconnected the Snyder fandom had become from reality.
Ladies and gentlemen, hashtag Henry Cavill Superman!
Another account I want to talk about is Snyder King. Their handle is BO086432. And I'm saying this flat out, I don't know if this is even a real person or not. I've watched this account post hundreds of times a day, every single day for months. It's always the same pattern of quote tweeting Superman box office updates, replying under random film news accounts, and pushing the same recycled Snyder worship and the same recycled James Gunn hate. You don't post like that unless it's automated or unless you've fully lost your grip on reality. The handle alone kind of gives it away. It's random letters and numbers, and that's bot account 101. Real people don't choose usernames like that. Snyder King doesn't behave like a fan account either. It's really just pure engagement bait as a way of, like, I'm assuming generating money. But what I want to know is, who is running this account? Who benefits from keeping a dead conversation like this alive? I pulled the analytics. Between July 9th and July 11th, Snyder King posted over 200 times. 93% of it was just replying to people with no original content. Total impressions were 38,000, and the economic value attached to all of this was $44. All of this spamming and rage baiting for just $44. To me, that's where either one of two possibilities land. Either this is a bot that's set up by some cheap engagement farm, or it is a real person who genuinely believes that this is worth their time, sacrificing entire days of their life for $44 worth of imaginary influence. Neither option is good, and if this is a real person, I actually hope they get the help that they need. When you look at the post history, there are gaps. You can see clear lulls in posting. 2, 3, sometimes 4-hour stretches where there's nothing. Bots don't sleep, right? Like, a human will have lulls like that. This is very clearly human behavior, which means this is probably a real person. Someone is really wasting their life away, spamming the same delusional Zack Snyder takes and screaming into the void. At that point, I don't even know what to say. Like, that's tragic. It really is. Following the 2025 Superman opening weekend, the behavior of the Snyderbros moved beyond just denial and right into outright hostility, racism, and downright abhorrent behavior. When the box office numbers became impossible to dismiss, Snyder fans did not scale back their protests, but instead chose to just straight up harass people, send personal attacks, and be openly racist. This is a fandom that positioned themselves as being this persecuted, misunderstood group. But these types of messages reveal that in reality, they embodied the exact toxic behavior that made Zack Snyder's brand of superhero films so polarizing in the first place. And that same attitude surfaced in public comment sections. One public post from the account Overseer Terry perfectly summarized the irrational mindset spreading across Snyder fan spaces. It reads, "Curse whoever gave this a good rating. This is just blind hostility aimed at strangers for enjoying a movie." Think about that for a second. This is where we're at right now. We are seeing what was once a fan movement of people who wanted to see a director's vision come to life slowly morph into a reactionary subculture that is defined entirely by resentment and nothing more. You had tweets like this, where it says, how Zack Snyder portrayed female characters versus how James Gunn did. The tweet includes a still image of Wonder Woman from Zack Snyder's films, next to a clip of Hawkgirl from Superman 2025 using her sonic scream powers. There's no context or any genuine analysis. Instead, we're just seeing a weird attempt to imply that James Gunn's versions of superheroes were inferior because it didn't match Zack Snyder's aura and hype moment type of filmmaking. If anything, it actually shows how they just prefer to reframe conversations around aesthetics instead of actual substance. Like, if a character doesn't look like Henry Cavill and they're not flexing in slow motion, then it's not a real movie. At this point, there just isn't much left to say about the Snyder fandom that hasn't already been documented by me or other channels on YouTube. What started out as a very loud and aggressive online movement has burned itself out in public. The boycotts failed, the embarrassing conspiracy theories collapsed, and all that's left is a handful of bitter posts and recycled hashtags.
Hashtag Henry Cavill Superman!
As a result, this is going to be my last video about the Snyder Bro fandom for the foreseeable future. Not because they disappeared completely, but because continuing to cover them feels pointless now. There's nothing new happening. It's just the same people running in circles, repeating the same talking points to a rapidly shrinking audience. Unless something completely unhinged happens, something that is worth actually breaking down, I'm done giving this corner of the internet any more oxygen. They had their moment, they lost, and now all that's left is silence. And with all that out of the way, I'm Cole McCormick. You are watching Firewood Media. Huge thanks to our channel members. Your support makes these videos possible. Your names are listed right here up on screen. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.